Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iPhone 12 Pro has been my main phone for the past 5 to 6 days. I've been using it full time. I switched from an 11 Pro Max to test this out, and so far I'm really enjoying it. But I want to talk about the good and the bad. And so the first good thing is the camera. In fact, this entire video is being recorded with the back camera of the iPhone 12 Pro in 4K 60 frames per second. And as you can see here, it's in HDR. So if you have HDR as an option on your browser or YouTube, make sure you turn that on, as this is in 4K HDR. So you can see the quality of the camera. I'm not using any external microphones, so whatever you hear, whether it be the environment, the ambient sounds around me, or just my voice, it's all coming from the microphone of the iPhone 12 Pro. So this should give you a general idea of what to expect. Now, of course, we do have two other cameras, and they take really nice photos. I think they fixed some of the color issues that they were having in previous years, and in general, I think the photos are a little bit better. I took quite a few, as you can see here. This is the same sort of area that I'm in now, and I think they look pretty good in general. They're nice and clear, and even the night photos look amazing. Of course, if you're using a 30-second exposure on a tripod, you're going to get the best experience, and you can see how bright and vibrant these are with the new lens that's in the iPhone 12 Pro. Now, along with the great camera during the day, we have the new LiDAR sensor at night, and it does a great job with autofocus and tracking because it's using lasers to actually sense depth. It's bouncing lasers off me back to it to sense the actual depth, where you can't normally see depth in this sort of dim lit condition. It also is great for augmented reality with maybe sensing object tracking, and also with 3D scanning. I've seen some of this on the iPad Pro with room scanning, and what it can do is pretty amazing. So I think what we'll have in the future will be much more significant than what we have right now, but for now it's great with autofocus and portrait mode and augmented reality. So hopefully we see more of that maybe in the years to come. Now we'll have to wait for the iPhone 12 Pro Max that has the new sensor shift stabilization and bigger sensor, but I think in general this is an upgrade over last year. It may not be a giant jump, but it's definitely an improvement. Now, one thing that really contributes to the overall quality of the photos and the video you're seeing now is the new neural engine that's found on the A14 CPU. And this is a very big upgrade if you're coming from an older phone. In fact, my wife switched from an iPhone 10 to the 12 Pro and immediately noticed how fast applications were opening and just said, this thing feels so fast. And so that's not something I considered coming from the 11 Pro Max, but if you're coming from a phone from a couple years ago, you'll definitely notice an improvement in overall speed and usability. Switching between apps isn't a problem, and apps stay open longer when you're in it. RAM management is great. They don't normally close, and hopefully I don't get rain down here, but they don't really close in the background. And in general, it's just a much faster processor that I think will last years to come. So at least 5 years or so, because this thing is so fast just in general. Now, one of the big changes this year is its overall design. It's somewhere between the iPhone 4 and 5. And the reason I say between is because the outside rim is stainless steel with glass front and back. So you have that stainless steel on the outside, like an iPhone 4, but you have sort of the flattened edges of the iPhone 5 and 5S. So this is a great design. It's one of my favorite designs. In fact, this is my favorite design. Except for the stainless steel being very prone to fingerprints, there's not really any negatives to this design. It's easier to grip because it's squared off, and it doesn't feel like it's going to fall out of your hands because of that. It is a fingerprint magnet, so you'll want a case if that's something that bothers you, or a skinner on the outside edge. But the matte finish on the back is something I really like, and just in general, I love this design. And that leads me to the display. The display is easy to see in the sunlight. It goes up to 800 nits of brightness, and it's HDR. When you're watching HDR content, it goes up to 1200 nits of brightness, and you definitely can see this. Hopefully you can see it on this video, but there's some amazing brights and darks in this display, and it's an OLED display. Every display gets OLED this year, and some people may be turned off by that if PWM bothers you and you have sensitivity to light, but I have that problem, and this display doesn't bother me at all. Even though it's flickering, it must be at a higher rate where there's something different about it. So it really doesn't bother my eyes at any brightness level, despite it flickering at all. Now, along with that display, of course, you need some quality speakers if you're going to be watching HDR content on it. And I would say Apple delivered again on this. It was great with the 11 Pro Max. I think the only difference is it's a little clearer at higher volumes with the 12 Pro. Definitely the best watch Apple has made. And I don't just say that because it's new. There's a lot of positives. But first, let's talk about what's new. So the first thing that's new is So it goes nice and loud. around 2 decibels louder, or maybe about the same, but in general it's nice and loud, sounds good, and I really have no complaints when it comes to the speaker. Now, before we talk about what's bad, there's a few things that are good and bad. And so the first thing has to do with the display. It has ceramic shield, so it's 4 times less likely to break if you drop it. The problem with that is I'm not seeing much of an improvement with scratch resistance. In fact, the iPhone 12 has the same ceramic shield on it, and it had some light scratches on it after the first couple days of use. I'm not sure where they came from, but it was scratched. Now, it may scratch less than last year's iPhone 11 and 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, but in my experience, most people are going to want a screen protector on this display because of that. So just keep that in mind. It's glass. Glass scratches, depending on what you're hitting it with, whether that be rocks or a diamond from a ring, it will scratch. And it will scratch if you bump a sapphire display camera into it as well. So just keep those things in mind. Put a screen protector on it if that's something that's going to bother you. Now, another sort of neutral thing is MagSafe. MagSafe connects to the back of a case or the back of the phone and allows you to charge wirelessly while using it. So it's using wireless charging technology, but also adheres to make for a better charging experience and faster speeds. I'm sort of neutral about this because you still have to disconnect it from the back of the phone. And of course, you have these wireless charging cases, which are nice. I'm kind of mixed about this ring. I kind of like it, but it reminds me of the Apple campus or Apple Park campus, so I think it's nice, and it will make for some interesting accessories in the future, and I think that's what it's all about. But I like MagSafe overall. Whether or not you need that wireless charger, though, I'm kind of neutral about it. If you already have a fast charger, you might want to skip it because you're going to have to plug into the port anyway. But I think it is the first step in Apple offering a fully wireless iPhone. So maybe we'll see that with next year's iPhone or a couple years out. But because it has a magnetometer and NFC, and maybe in the future it can transmit data back and forth, I think that is the first step towards the next phone, which will be wireless. I'm thinking that's what Apple's doing. Now, the last thing that's both good and bad, or sort of neutral, is 5G. And the reason I say good and bad is 5G is super fast. Now, where I live, T-Mobile has very good 5G coverage. That's who I'm using, at least in this phone. And I've got 2 bars of 5G. At 2 bars of 5G, I have plenty of speed, it's super fast, and I have an improvement over 4G. Not everybody is seeing this, depending on the carrier. It makes a big difference, but some people may see a big improvement, some may not. And if you have Verizon and you have 5G with millimeter wave, you'll get an improvement as far as that goes because you'll have that extra speed. However, the millimeter wave antenna is only available in the United States, and it's really hit or miss. In the Charlotte area where I'm at, it's really hit or miss. You have to be downtown in the Charlotte area, or uptown as they call it here, in a certain corner, kind of in line of sight and holding out your phone to get the best speeds. Apple says up to 4 gigabits per second. I'm not going to see that because I have T-Mobile and I don't have millimeter wave that I'm aware of in any areas around me. So it's really a Verizon thing and soon an AT&T thing. Maybe we'll see it more widespread later on, but it's really hit or miss, and to me that part's not worth it. But 5G in general is an improvement. But the area where it's not an improvement is the battery. If you're using 5G a lot, you're going to notice a battery hit of 1 to 2 hours, depending on how much you're using it. Of course, there's an option to turn off 5G if you want to do that, and you can do that certainly if you're not seeing a benefit, but Apple is actually managing this by themselves, giving you 5G when it's a benefit, and when it's not, they turn it off, even though it still shows 5G in the upper right. This does help save battery, and that moves me over to my first negative, is battery life. If you're using 5G, like I am, 5.5 to 6 hours is what I'm seeing consistently on the iPhone 12 Pro. Now with the 12 Pro Max, I may see an improvement, but I got 5.5 hours with 100% use of my battery yesterday, and a couple hours of screen off time, meaning it's playing music in the background or something along those lines, where you just have some media playing or it's doing some background activity. Consistently, I'm seeing 5.5 to 6 hours with my normal use. So that's something that may or may not matter to you. But that leads me over to the next thing, is there's no charger in the box. Now, this is not a problem for me. I have an 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max and wireless chargers, and I can use any of those. That's not a problem. It's saving the environment for me personally because I don't need those chargers. But for those of you that are new to iPhone, I see this as sort of a hit or miss. It really depends on what you have as far as chargers lying around. You'll get the best speeds with Apple's 20-watt charger. You could use a MacBook charger. You could use last year's charger. But if you don't have one, you're going to have to spend about $20 to get one. On a positive note, Apple is giving you an extra 64 gigs or so of RAM with the iPhone 12 Pro over last year's with the price. So they didn't change the price. This isn't really a positive or negative. It's just the same price, but they are giving you an extra 64 gigs of RAM for the same $9.99 to start. So that's a positive, and that sort of makes up for the lack of a charger. So it's kind of a win, but a miss with the charger. It just depends on how you look at it. I kind of see it as a neutral thing depending on your experience overall and whether or not you have a charger lying around the house. In conclusion, the iPhone 12 Pro is a great size. I think the display overall and the overall feel of it is probably the right size for most people. I think this is something that I could use full-time instead of the 12 Pro Max. I'll have to wait and see once I get that and see if there's any huge improvements in the camera with the new sensors. But the 12 Pro is definitely recommended, especially if you're coming from an iPhone 10 or 10s. I think it's a big upgrade as far as speed and cameras. If you're on an 11 or 11 Pro, you may want to wait until next year's phone. It really depends on what matters most to you. The new design is something I've been waiting for years, and so this is something that I've been waiting for to have, and I would upgrade just for the design personally. But it really depends on the budget, how you're using your phone regularly, if it's something you use a lot or not. It's going to make a difference for you. Let me know what you think of the iPhone 12 Pro, and also what's your favorite color? This is the Pacific Blue. The graphite looks really nice. So does silver. I'm not a big fan of gold, but I know a lot of people love it. What's your favorite color? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below as far as the phones go. Also, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.